Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Speaking Plain English. I am your host, Roberta, and today we have an awesome topic. We're going to do an artist. No, I'm sorry, not an artist, an author. Well, kind of both. An author highlight. Um, and this author is going to be the author of the very brand new book that has just been published. I might be able to see it. It's called Black on the Wall, Like Father, Like Son. There we go. By T.W. Johnson, who actually is my cousin. And we're going to get into a little bit about why I have him here and why this book is going to be so awesome. So I'm going to bring him onto the set. And here we go. Hey, cousin.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today? Well, afternoon now.
Yes, afternoon now. To God be the glory.
Awesome. So first of all, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on out of your very busy schedule that you have going on today. If y'all don't know, my cousin is in school, he's working, and he's a minister as well. So he's got a lot of things going on. So we've got, a very concise bit of time, but we're going to take it because this is an awesome accomplishment that he has done. And how he's also been a part of Black history, being that this is Black History Month, even though we know that Black history is all day, every day. So we're going to just, honor the month of ours that we were given. And I want you to just give us a brief introduction of yourself.
Well, cousin, I wear many different hats. But first, I'm the associate elder of Powerhouse St. Luke Church of God in Christ, where my pastor is Sanford L. Henderson. And we were going over Black History Month, and we were discussing the legacy. And Roberta, we were talking about this at your father's appreciation service. And the devil tries to rob us because of not knowing our legacy. But back in the day of Nehemiah, it was important that you can trace your legacy to know that you were one of God's children so that you can get all the promises that God has for us. So when I started to write this book, it was talking about the legacy of my dad, the first African American stockbroker to get a seat on the American Stock Exchange. Yes. And he broke barriers for many people. And I think it's important for us to know where we come from. So to give us a perspective on where we're going, this year going on since COVID came, Roberta, I have this thing that's been on my heart, and I want to take back everything that the devil has stolen from us. Some of us work very hard and it seems like the work is in vain. We're here to take that back because God does appreciate the works that we put in.
Absolutely. And I am honestly all for that, because we want everything. Well, I don't know. I can't say I talk for everybody, but I know I do. I want everything, every single promise that God has promised for me and mine. So let's get into this book. So first of all, congratulations and thank you, on your very first novel that you've written about yourself. So as well as your dad, as you alluded to just a little while ago. And just a brief synopsis of, for those who are watching, pretty much like he said, the book is about his life as well as his father, who was the first Black man to have a seat on the American Stock Exchange. And that's where his father comes in, but where he comes in as well is that he worked there with him, and at one point, so they became, again, another part of Black history, the first father-son duo. So let me ask you, first of all, how was it for you to witness your father making history, as far as how did all that come about?
Well, to be funny, if you talk about the early 60s, first of all, I was really intrigued just when I went to work with my dad at the age of 6 years old. And I looked and I said, oh my God, you're the only Black person running around this floor trading. There were other employees that were Black, but not in the position that my dad had. And the thing that I think it taught me was humility. at a young age, because even though my father was breaking color barriers and going through diversity, there was a certain respect that they had for my father, whether he was black or white. And I believe that comes biblically from God giving you favor. When it says he'll prepare a table for you in the presence of your enemy, just as many people were proud of my dad, there were so many haters and people who wanted to sabotage him. But, God puts us in places for certain times and certain reasons. And, my motto is, if you're not doing anything for God's people, then what is your purpose? Because the me attitude is dead and gone. And pride, we know, is very destructive force within the things that are going on. And you should never underestimate your opponent. David, Goliath, Vladimir Putin. They've been in war for a year right now, but God is in control of all things.
Absolutely. And what I want to do is I want to add onto that my dad also was part of my own father. He was there as well. And I remember him, and he still does sometimes tell the stories of how they started. Because if those of you who don't know, my father and I call him Tommy. Tommy's father were their first cousins, and they were like brothers. My father had his own set of brothers, but they were really, really close. They ran together all the time. I think I remember him saying they went from being each other's partners in crime to partners in ministry, even.
Yes.
It's the funniest thing. So it's so cool to be able to first of all have that, as far as that have that stamp of approval, in our own family, in our own bloodline, in the Johnson family. And I just want you to go over, just talk a little bit about, like, what did you see as far as starting with how your dad started on the in the stock market? Like, how did he start, and how did he end up getting to be the first Black stockbroker, having one in the seat?
Oh, that's an amazing story. And just to show you one thing that our families instilled, your father and my family, Roberta, if we were at Grammy's house, it was 6:30 in the morning, girls and boys in bed. We were up in the morning. The girls were in the kitchen learning how to make Grammy's cheesy eggs. The young men
Still didn't get it.
were up. We were up either mowing the grass or putting out our hands to the till. And one thing I remember was the snowstorm of 1973. It was about 4 feet of snow. We lived in East New York at the time, Brooklyn. My dad, the trains had stopped running. And where we lived in East New York, you had to take a bus to get to the train. My dad knew about that snowstorm and got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and walked across the Brooklyn Bridge to get to the American Stock Exchange. And when he got there, phone rings, picks up the phone on the floor at exchange. It's his boss. He goes, "Tommy, how did you get here?" Everybody else called in sick.
Wow.
Said, "Boss, don't worry." That day, my father ran that firm where it takes 5 people to do it.
Oh, my goodness.
He answered all the phones, executed all the orders. The next day, the boss came down to the floor and says, "Come here. For the work which you did and what I saw, I'm making you a partner in my firm. To God be the glory." I'm trying not to cry as you give me this interview, but God's favor, because I recall my father telling me, he says, "Son, you were at home in Pampers at 2 years old while they were calling me the N-word to my face. But I said, Lord, I have a family to support, and I can't choke this man out right now." To God be the glory. When I look at the sacrifices that your father and my father have made for their family, they're godly men, even though before, I call it their BC time, before Christ.
Yes.
Our family has an amazing calling and favor on it. And for that, I'm just honored and blessed. We have legacy that we talk about. Ask your dad about the story about him and your Aunt Shirley, God bless the dead. When they were younger, the favor that granddaddy had up in Harlem, they could go into the meat market. Like, you know what? We're a little hungry about this. All right, give him a quarter pound of bologna, give him a quarter pound of ham. And it's the favor that you have.
Wow.
And Roberta, you know this just by leading by example. When you go upstate New York, it was tough for the Johnson children to go to the high school or the junior high school because all of our family has been there before us.
Yep.
So if I had a brother or a sister or a cousin who happened to be a little bit better in math than I was, I would get, aren't you a Johnson? Look at your test paper. What's the matter with this? And I said, you know, I'm not him or her. So Roberta can attest to this being the baby. Out of all her brothers and sisters, she has her own individuality. And by the way, if y'all don't know, no, Roberta was passed around the church as a baby so much. We like this, who's got her? Who has her now? But that's the love, and she still shines to this day.
Thank you, cuz I hear that story so much. So much. And I can definitely attest to what you were talking about as far as the difference been, you know, going up to the school of Wallkill, what is that, Wallkill Central School District? Because even now, I believe Jeffrey and Roger and even Eric and I believe Alex, I think their pictures are still up there. These were my cousins and uncles who were excellent athletes on their team, to the point where they still have their picture. I haven't been there in a long time, but I know when I was in high school there, they still had their pictures there. So that's actually another episode we're going to get into about holding a legacy. You done sparked something, sir. You done sparked something. So listen, we have a question on the floor before we get into a little bit, and I want you to answer this question from your opinion. And before we have you answer the question, now for those who don't know about what happened with Black Wall Street, which was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, let me give you a little bit of a background, just in case for those who may not know. So Black Wall Street was there was like a town in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we had our own, you know, we all supported our own. We had our own businesses, our dollars, like Black dollars, were being circulated amongst each other. It was a very, you know, we were thriving and we were doing excellent. And how can I say this? Some people got jealous because we were doing things our way and we were doing well and we were becoming wealthy. And they got so jealous that it was, you know, they ended up bombing everything that we had. And so that's just how jealousy is some people just can't stand when you have either what they have or without needing them or doing better. So one thing that that's just, you know, a brief synopsis. If you want to go into, you know, depths with it and look it up, and so that you can get all of the details, you can do that. But in a nutshell, that's what the story of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, that being said, and the reason why we say it like that is because Wall Street in New York, you know, the American Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange in New York was back in the 60s. There was, like Tommy was just saying, it was a white man's world, period, because they were the ones who were taught how to run money. So being that we actually had our own, then it became a jealousy thing, and that's when they felt like they had to get rid of it. So with that being said, do you think that it is possible that Black Wall Street can be restored? And I'm going to give my opinion on that in a minute. Good question.
Well, yes, I do believe it can be restored. As a matter of fact, it's already been restored. The problem is information has been suppressed. To anybody that really gets ahead, there are people with opposition, as the Bible says, where every time you do good, that evil is ever yet present. So with that being said, sometimes it's come to the point to where we almost have to work underneath a cloak and a dagger. I mean, I'm going to be absolutely transparent when we talk about this. Our support system as a people has been traditionally torn down, so that we have too much animosity within to be able to get together on one to build. Black Wall Street, what made it so effective is it's your community. And just like Christ did, I tell people all the time, I know for a fact because I'm in ministry. When in ministry, it's 10% behind the pulpit. The other 90% is interdwelling with your people. Our people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Black Wall Street definitely does exist. Let me break this down a little bit for you. Black Wall Street was named that in Oklahoma only because if you think about the transverse and the diversification of the West at the time, Roberta will tell you we are African American and American Indian. We have Sioux and Cherokee in our family. So as far as me, I feel very personal because we've got it bad on both ends. The way, if you really want to depict it, when I think about some of our great ancestors who were sharecroppers and who were beaten and who were raped, but only had a third grade education, but they raised their family on godly and moral principles that has pushed our family to the forefront. Black Wall Street is nothing different from back in the days when Apostle Paul was a citizen in Rome. And even though as a Roman citizen, because he was a Christian, they felt that they could treat him any kind of way. Well, I'm here to let you guys know. This book, Black on the Wall, is just what it is because it has an ambiguous meaning to it. Yes, is it a black man on Wall Street? But let's talk about the first thing that they traded down there at the seaport before they were buildings. You know, the first thing they traded were us. Was African Americans. Slaves is what they did. So if you really want to talk about breaking down barriers and building Black Wall Street, how about this? To be honest with you, cousin, what I do here on earth is only for those who will open up their ears and their hearts to get your real reward in heaven. I think that every African American or woman or people who have strived that God has given a charge to do is not for their purpose, but for all others. This platform that you have here is groundbreaking. And I thank God that you went with the vision that he's given you because it's important that people need to hear. Well, we're destroyed for the lack of knowledge. But Black Wall Street entrepreneurship, it is thriving, but you won't hear about it because they don't want you to hear about it. I'm so proud of so many people that I know, Roberta, that have been behind the scenes. You know, I believe it's about your motive and why you do things.
That's it.
I wrote this book because people need to know that, yes, you can. We're living in a land where hope is gone. What's wrong is right. What's right is wrong. So with that, I believe that, well, you know how I feel about our family. We're the remnant family. We're the Levites. I'm sorry, but I'm Thomas W. Johnson IV. The other three Thomases were all pastors. Where could I possibly end up?
Well, you know me. You know me and my opinion of I always have some kind of something different. Just because, and this is not to say that this is not where you are, because it obviously, the ministry in preaching is obviously in you, because you was about to tune up just a minute ago. So it's already there. But what I can appreciate about you specifically is that you're like me in a sense where you think things, you don't just necessarily, yes, we do things traditionally and things like that, but we go past tradition and we take a look at what is traditional. And it's like, okay, this is good, but these may need to be tweaked a little bit. And that's why I want to shout out your, if you do still do View in the Pew.
Yes, it's been on hold since I'm back in school because my schedule, I have a bad habit of not saying no until my wife said to me, there's only one of you and you can't do 3 o'clock appointments. So, yes, but View from the Pew is coming back.
So for those of you who don't know, I want you guys to, because this is right up my alley. And I ended up, was it that or Hard Truths that episode. It was in View on the Pew. There was an episode on that, and that I went on, and I mean, usually certain things I'll just keep my mouth shut about. Y'all just come to listen to get some information. But there was one where there was a little bit of a difference of opinion regarding like attire, if you remember.
Oh, I remember that episode. Yeah. You went hard.
So, and this, we're going to get back into the book in just a minute, but this is just, a little bit of one reason why I have this episode and why I have him here. There was a conversation about how it would look, or how people would feel, or what it would look like if a missionary or somebody in high stature, a woman, was to come in dressed in a pantsuit or dressed in pants or something like that. And my response was, what's wrong with that?
Right.
I mean, what is the problem with that? And I mean, when I tell you, it was a whole big thing of where they were like, it's just not, it's not something that is traditional, and it's not, people would look at it a certain way. And I'm like, well, don't you think that it's time that we stop looking at things traditionally and see whether or not it actually makes sense? Because to be perfectly honest, if a woman is coming to preach, first of all, and if she's coming to, if she's dressed appropriately, she's got a nice pantsuit on, what's the problem with that? Just because it's not something that people are used to doesn't mean that it's wrong, and doesn't mean that it's sinful. So that became a thing. And I honestly think that is the purpose of that is part of my purpose in life, is to present Christ in a way where we stop and look at his heart. You know what I mean? And look at what he wants us to do as opposed to how he wants us to look. Because like you said, motive is everything. Motive is everything.
I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad you said that, because guess what? And I've been saying this for years. The old saints of Church of God in Christ, a lot of people didn't want to really go to Kojic because they said, oh, you guys are too strict and you're too hard. But back when we were coming up, it sounded crazy what they were saying, but the nugget within that, they were going hard about the little, because the Bible says it's the little foxes that destroy the vines. So they went extra on the little, because if the little crept in, it grows. Now let's reverse this for a minute. Back then, they didn't want women wearing pantsuits, so they said, because if you really want to think about it, back when they had those regulations, women weren't even really allowed to be in ministry. They could do the prayer service, they can fry the fish, they can do devotional, but as far as a woman being in leadership roles, that was unheard of. Their mindset about the attire was based very Old Testament. As a matter of fact, in Exodus, when they talk about how women and men should be able to be told about what it is. But look at the reverse part of it. Mm-hmm. Now you have so-called evangelists and missionaries coming to church wearing stirrups and thigh-high boots, very clingy to their bodies. Mm-hmm. And this is what the old peoples foresaw. Roberta, I'm old enough to remember when the first television hit the house. Wow. Because our family would sit around on the floor and listen to the radio. And when TV first came out, even a husband and a wife slept in a separate beds. You would not see. That's right. If you look at I Love Lucy, they had separate beds. Absolutely right. The Honeymooners, you never even saw their bedroom. The Dick Van Dyke Show, separate beds, because they didn't want to even have that, even though we know that marriage is created by God. Amen. But understand what we're looking at now. I used to watch The Guiding Light with your Auntie Louise with my grandmother. Wow. 2:30 on Channel 2. I turned it on last week and Victor Newman is still on. I can't believe it. I'm 56 years old. I'm not afraid to tell my age. But what I'm trying to, but the problem is now I could turn on at 12 o'clock in the news and turn on Channel 2 and see two men kissing. And I'm going here to tell you, Jesus is coming to crack the sky. We are not judgmental because we walk in love, and everybody is with sin. But you know what the problem is now? Now it's like people are desensitized to it. We live in a time where everything goes, and I'm not an everything go kind of guy. I'll put a cap on that.
Man, when I tell you we can just go. We can just go.
Yes, we can. I don't know if we have enough time for this session.
No, we unfortunately, because we both, our schedules. But this is what I want to get into this here. I want you to tell me after all these years. Now, how did you, let me ask you that. How did you end up getting onto the job, onto Wall Street?
Oh, you're going to love that. You know our parents. I was 14 and a half years old. I said, Dad, sign this. He says, what's this? I said, it's for my working papers. I want to apply for this job to work for the parks department. He goes, yeah, okay, I'll sign that. And he goes, here, you sign this. And I said, what is this? He said, it's an application for the summer program for the New York Stock Exchange. And as a young man, my dad would always take me down there. Okay, so I kind of grew up with him on the street. So when I got a job at 14 and a half in the summer program, when I went down there, it was just like going to visit. Everybody knew me. I got a job as a page, which is a runner on the floor of the exchange. What my job responsibility was, we would stand right in the middle of the floor. And when a stockbroker would execute a trade, he'd write it out. He would raise his hand and go, page or squad. And I would go take that executed ticket and take it back to the location to where his firm was on the floor. So I had to memorize. They had like 52 different booths, 26 on one side, 26 on the other. And in each hallway, in each booth, you had firms. You had Merrill Lynch, you had Smith Barney. I would look at the broker's badge and I see his name is Al Smith. He works for Smith Barney. I would take his order, go give it to his clerk. His clerk would get on the phone and report the trade was done. Sometimes he'd tell me, wait a minute, Tom, you have another order. I would fold a piece of paper so no other brokers could see it. Fold a piece of paper and go give it to him, whisper in there and say, look, he told me to tell you to buy 100,000 at 3/4. That's the way things were done back then. And after doing that job in the summertime, when I graduated high school, I was going to school at night. I got a job at the exchange full-time, and I worked there for a year, and then I got a job with Thompson McKinnon working in the back office. My father thought it would be a good idea for me to learn the business from the inside out, because when you're a man of color, the target is on your back. So for him to get a seat and me to get a seat, you weren't just good. You had to be outstanding. You had to actually embarrass people by the good works that you did to make them promote you. I got my seat when I traded Enron. Nobody's beaten my record, 492 million shares in one day. And guess what? No errors, unheard of. My boss was so livid. He was like this, how many errors do we have? And I never forget my brother, my Frederick Paul Yak, Freddie Yak, taught me a lot about trading. He was the specialist. I was his clerk, trading Enron. And when I tell you that the gift of God was on us, they were career-ending numbers. Wow. They would come in, how is it, Freddie? He's like, 30 cents for 10 million, 10 million over to 35. Sold. I'm like, did he just hit the bid? Did he just sell us 10 million shares? I'm hitting the buttons going, how many zeros is that? And we did this for a year and a half straight. We traded that stock from $125 down to 25 cents.
Wow.
And that's because they had cooked their books. Let me tell you something. God is not mocked. And I'll be honest, when people say, how did you do that job? I didn't do that job. God did that job. Because unbeknownst to people, while I was going through that, it was one of the worst parts of my life. I was going through a divorce. Things were going on spiritually, financially. To be honest, I didn't care. When I got to work, I'm like, I don't care if it's 10 million or not. I don't care. I was there physically, but mentally. But that's God all in that. I was going through one of the most emotional periods in my lifetime, and God was in that. because that's where he started forming me into ministry. God had to remove, he had to remove some things out of my life, Roberta. He had to put me through some fiery trials, but I didn't feel it. But the people that were around me affected. When God puts you through a trial and a tribulation, it's going to affect everything, because when his hand moves from the left to the right, it is just doing more than what you think it is. It's putting out fires, it's bringing rain, it's building up. I'm trying not to tune up. You told me this.
I told you, it's in you. It's in you. It's all in you.
I'm not going to apologize, but I will quantize on this. Never our time, God's time. This book, Never Our Time, God's Time. My father and I were talking about this. I was teasing him. I said, Dad, I'm going to write this book about our history. He started telling me stories, and I couldn't write quick enough because we were laughing. And when I think about how he got the job, here's a kicker. You get ready for the kicker? No, get ready for the kicker. My father worked at an automated food store called Horn and Hardart.
Okay.
This was a store to where you would go and you ever see the vending machines in the hospital where you put 50 cents in and you get a sandwich or whatever. His job was supplying that. Horn and Hardart was like a big automated supply, and you would go in and the food would be there ready for you. He had a friend named Grayson, white fellow. They played piano together in school. My father said, Grayson, what are you doing here? He said, yeah, well, I got a job over here at the American. He goes, you want a job? Got on the phone and called up Catholic priest. Catholic priest said, yeah, Grayson, bring your friend. Catholic priest got on the phone, made a phone call and says, here, go and see this guy at the American Stock Exchange. And they gave my father a job as a runner. He would go out there, he'd work for the firm. He would, go and get the coffee, go and get the sandwiches, do whatever little odd jobs they had. And after they
call it the gopher.
Like go for this and go for that. That's right. Go for this and go for that. And after they saw that he was inquisitive, they said, come here, let me show you this. And they started to teach him how to trade. So he went from going to get coffee to being a clerk, from being a clerk to being a partner. And that's God. Absolutely. In 1967, guess what? Guess what? And he was making good money. Guess what he was making? $80 a week.
Well, then
that was awesome. That's what I'm saying, because a dollar was still a dollar. Not like it is now, 62 cents. You can't buy a pack of gum with $1 now.
You really can't. My favorite.
Remember Grammy would give us $1 and we would go around the corner from the church and get, oh my God, 10 cents worth of that licorice. We would come back with a big and have money left over.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. But that just goes to show you. But you know what? Less is more. And for God's people, God took me off of a job making over $500,000 a year. Then I had to go and work in a hospital making $8 an hour. And God gave me more money in my pocket. He kept my house. He kept my lights on. He kept my car. There was no college payments missed for my babies. The grandchildren got what they wanted. I'm getting happy right now. You see, it's about to happen. But I'm here to tell y'all right now.
Man.
Oh,
that's
taste
what happens
and see.
when you have the favor of God on your life. And when you
taste and see that God is good. And you know why these things have come into my life to fruition? Because I put God first. Because I realize that he's the only thing that lasts and the only thing that matters. This heaven and this earth, they're going to pass away. But Jesus never fails. See, why you got to get me started? I'm looking for my handkerchiefs now. I'm not going to start.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me at all. So we have a question in the comments from Linda. I believe you know who that is, right? For those of you who don't know, this is his wife, as well as she actually assisted him with publishing the book. So the question is, what is the power of the Black dollar, and how do we keep the Black dollar in our Black communities? Ooh, okay.
Now, see, I'm going to answer that question again because she got that from our friend Shannon Lanier over at Cheddar News.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God for Mr. Shannon, who gave me my first interview for Black on the Wall on television. And I thank God for it. Keeping the Black dollar starts with keeping the Black community. The problem is I'm going to talk about it because since I'm one of us, I can talk about us, okay? We don't support each other enough. The problem is, instead of keeping up with the Joneses, we need to build the Joneses.
Come on.
We are the Joneses. If you look at our Israel brothers and sisters in Brooklyn, and from history, you know, I grew up, I'm a Brooklyn baby. I was born in Brooklyn, okay? My grandparents lived at 534 Flushing Avenue. Jay-Z lived up on the 5th floor. Shout out to you, Sean, my man, love you. And I'm going to tell you something. When him and I were growing up, it was funny. They used to tease me because they would see me getting on the bus going to private school.
Wow.
And he says, but you know what? I like to hang out with you. I like the way you talk. And he says, you know what? You just never judge a book by its cover because all of us who grew up in NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, Queensbridge, all day. Let me tell y'all something.
Yes.
Things were different. In 1960, my parents couldn't get an apartment in New York City housing unless you showed a marriage certificate. Now you have, and now you have people who are taking advantage of the system, not wanting to do anything for themselves. And God does not. All right, Roberta, this just went left. I'm sorry, but I feel that I have to educate our people because
Absolutely.
we are more than conquerors, and it's time for us to stop looking at what they can do for us.
Absolutely.
And for us to have the fortitude and to get up and pray and ask God, what can you do for your brother or your sister? Because we are here for one another.
Absolutely.
So to all you entrepreneurs, if you're creating a business, let it be to be the benefit of others, not for filthy lucre, because money is just a tool that we have to use. Mm-hmm. But do you know what? Me and Roberta's father still go fishing. And you know what we love? We're hunters and we're fishers. Because guess what? Our family's not going to go hungry, and God is a provider. But if you teach a man how to fish,
he'll eat for the rest of his life. Hungry. And neither will his family or anybody else that's around that's connected to him.
So therefore, when I look at the talents that you and your sisters have, I've never seen a busier bunch of people in my life. I can't keep up with Tashana at all. I got to check her on Facebook. I told her I'm gonna put a computer chip in your wrist so I can track you like it's National Geographic. She's always doing the work of the Lord. She's out singing here. She's out doing drives here. She's selling jewelry. I come to realize that the legacy of our family is, like I really said, like the Levites, because we're carers and we're givers of God's people. And we're all God's people. I've never seen a time where people are just so at odds with one another. The Baptists is fighting the Seventh-day Adventists. The Seventh-day Adventists is fighting the Catholics. The Catholics are fighting the AMEs.
For what?
Jesus didn't say that there's denominations. He says, I'm holy, so you be holy.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just say that again?
Yes, please.
Do you know I have a lot of friends in ministry? And one of the greatest gifts that God gave to me was to be a member of the Clergy Council of New York City. Do you know we have rabbis, priests, Baptist pastors, Pentecostal, AME? You know, we get together and pray for these police officers. You know, when there's a shooting up in the Bronx, there's a memo that goes out and we go and have prayer vigils and nobody's pointing fingers at one another talking about my God, your God. We all know that there's just one God, and the enemy has been sifting the people so that we can be sidetracked, so that we can't have unity. But do you know what the power of unity does? If you think about the Tower of Babel, and God says, right, they're with one accord and on one accord, and their mindset, if they got it together, that they can do it. So do you know the power of one or two together? I'm gonna stop, Roberta. I'm trying to
listen. No, but honestly and truly, that's actually what's necessary and what's needed to answer Linda's question, that's what we need, unity. And I'm going to shout out this there's a group that I've been seeing on Instagram. Actually, it's called We Buy Black. And if you really really look, and if you really search, you can find a black owned anything. Like you can find any, and when I say black owned, I don't mean black run, because there's a difference between being black owned and black run. It's when we actually own it ourselves, not that somebody else owns it and then they have us running it. There's a difference. And that's honestly a goal of mine. Honestly, that's a goal, to make every purchase that I make one of ours. And not that I'm dismissing any other race, but let's think about it this way. How many other cultures do it the same exact way? How many other cultures circulate their dollars within their own community, and that's all? How often do you see, like, how come? So it's not that we can't get it together. We can. We just have to put forth the effort. And in another episode that I did recently, I get that people are talking about, well, we charge too much and it costs too much and this, that, and the third. For those of you who didn't see the other episode that I did, matter of fact, go back and see that, but I'm just going to let you in on a little secret. The reason why it costs so much and why our prices are the way they are, they're higher, because number one, we use quality, we use better time. And three, because it costs us more to actually do business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to make this brief. One of the things that I do and that I've been doing is I've been assisting people with, helping them with them starting their businesses. And depending on your zip code, depends on that goes with how much it's going to cost you to do what you need to do to start a business. And I think that that's completely unfair. It's strategic and it's intentional, but it's unfair. And so once I realize that, I'll spend the extra dollars if I have to. I don't mind spending extra dollars anymore, because I know that it's going to go to, that's one lady that I'm so proud of, is Tabitha Brown. I'm so proud of her. But I'm going to tell y'all this. One thing that I really would like for us to do is to find a way. I'm glad that she's got her stuff in Target. Wonderful. But I'd rather purchase it directly from her. Absolutely. When it comes to music, because y'all know me, I'm a lover of music. I'm glad for Amazon. I'm glad for, all of these other, but I would love to be able to purchase their music directly from them. This book that you have, Amazon is great, but I needed to get it directly from you. Why? Because you get 100% of the profits. And that's how I understand everybody has their own method and their own way of doing things. But if you really want to be intentional about helping your community, about doing things like that, then go directly to them and ask them directly, how is it that I can help you? How can I get your stuff from you in your hand? And if you can't, share it. It's so simple. Like, if you can't afford it, then share it with other people. One thing that and with my niece, shout out to my niece Brianna, whose birthday is actually tomorrow. She's about to be a quarter of a century. She's my waxer. I've never, she's the third person that I've done, I've been waxed with, but she is my, you know what I'm saying? She's not only my niece, but she's my waxer. And not just is she my waxer, but she has these products that she created herself. And one of the things that I've been talking to different people about, as far as like pricing and things are concerned, how we're like, oh, I don't want to charge so much because people are not going to want to buy. Do y'all know people buy what they want to buy from who they want to buy it from, regardless of the price, regardless of how much it is? There are people who were anticipating Beyonce tickets being skyrocketed through the roof, and they've made plans. They are making plans to purchase them, do whatever it is. Like, there's a whole joke and everything going around. How many legs and how many kidneys am I going to have to sell to get these tickets? But at the end of the day, you're making preparation. So people do what they want to do for who they want to do it for. So it's not that we can't come together. It's that we have to put forth the effort to do so.
That is true. And, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because when you talk about the cost of doing business, because we aren't afforded the same opportunities. You just brought up some stuff that we're going to need another show.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about the geographic economics of our people.
Woo, cuz. Yup.
You don't want to take me down that road because I'll tell you, your sister always laughs and goes, "You don't know our family. They're licensed and more to preach."
To carry more than just the word. That's what she said.
You know, if you want to look at it, and I wanted to say it earlier, and I'm glad that I waited. We're living in a day and time where, just like back in the old days, if you and I were African American or people of color and we have an idea, I hate to say this, but I'm in real estate. And sometimes, even though I have connections, I have a Jewish lawyer that I send to buy certain properties. They will never know that Mr. Johnson is this. And that's sad, because you know what you really want to call it? Your next episode should be called Jim Crow 2.0.
Don't you start with me?
I'm starting. It's out there. If you want to talk about it economically, geographically, and educationally, I still want to understand why the barriers broke in New Orleans and only that poor area to where they relocated all these people. When Condoleezza Rice went down to say, "Oh, you should move," and which developer got all that property that when people weren't moved out? You mean to tell me that there's somebody that did not get rich off of an act of God that affected us?
Right.
No one else. If you want to talk about it, let's talk about reverse racism. Oh, Holy Ghost is on me now. Reverse. Man. Let's talk about reverse racism.
Do you
know? I'm going to tell you, I had some brothers say, "Come on, Tom, we got to go to Home Depot." And they pointed out some Mexican men that were just waiting out there to get some work. And this was the terminology. And I almost put my hands around his neck. He goes, "Yep. Well, those are the new NIGGERs." And I said, these people come here, they work hard. And you know what? I respect that, because you rather sit at home and get a check and not go out there, try to do anything for yourselves. And you have the audacity to talk about that man because he speaks with a Latin accent. I'm here to tell you right now, look at his complexion. When we all hit the courtroom, we are all the same. Exactly. And if people don't start to realize that we are all the same,
because we were the first ones here. Let's start. So
what is the difference between everybody else and white people in America? Favor.
That's it.
Well, we have favor, but they have privilege.
And there's a difference. Oh, there's a difference. Don't you start. I'm
sorry, but this is where we are. We are all the same.
Absolutely.
Mr. Stevenson, you better talk Sharice, yes, because we are all the same. And do you know what? Let me give you a little history. Noah had sons. They weren't all the same color. Do your research.
Ooh, okay, see.
Do your research.
We done started something that we ain't even got time to go into. Oh my
That's
goodness.
right.
And these comments are going
on the wall.
Listen, I want for all of you to honestly go find, I'm going to put his information here on the bottom so that you can reach out to him, so that you can purchase the book from him directly. Again, like I said, Amazon is great. That's wonderful. But they take a huge chunk out of the profits. So if you want to do what we up in here talking about, get it directly from him and pay shipping. And pay for shipping.
Amen.
Sharice, no one is 100% purebred.
That's anymore. Right.
Not anymore. Listen. So what I would love to do before we close, first of all, again, thank you so very much for coming. Thank you.
Sister Roberta, Monique Lisa, my mentor, my publicist. She just commented. You don't even know. I'm trying not to cry. This woman, when you talk about entrepreneurship, she's a writer. She does plays. She does power classes. She's been in movies. She's amazing.
So
when
we
I
need to connect.
hold on, I got to give my testimony, and I'm trying not to get emotional. She has been on me to write this book for the last 5 years. She said to me, all that knowledge on Wall Street, what are you doing? How come you're not teaching your people? And you know where I was in my life?
Did not ask you for a course. I asked you and my dad to get together and get
we're putting it. Monique, Lisa, and I are putting it together now.
Thank God.
She says, you don't know what you're sitting on, man. Her and her husband, Delano Johnson, he's a protege of the late Dr. Miles Monroe. Those are my go-to people.
Wow.
He's an author. They're amazing people. Do you know what she sewed into my life? She called me up. She goes, you just wrote a book. I got you an interview on this thing. My wife, it's like pulling teeth. She goes, yeah, well, Monique sponsored that and paid them that. I said, she did what for me?
Wow.
When you believe in your people, they will get behind you, but it's never your time. It's God's time. And if you think this book is something, Lisa, Monique, and I are working on the screenplay because this is movie bound. I'm going to put it out there. It is movie bound, and I don't know who I want to get to play me. And if you say Cat Williams, we going to fight. So, but it's movie bound. And I'm also in the process of working with my publicists and my mentors about putting together a master class because God now has put it in my heart to teach our people about the stock market. I don't care how many firms you look at, but to me, experience is the best teacher. And if we could be better stewards of our finance, we can be better stewards of our future. And if we can be better stewards of our future, then we can bring longevity to our race. And if we can bring longevity to our race, then there is nothing that we cannot do. Nope. This book isn't for me. This is for my grands and his great grands and your children and their great grands, because they need to know the heritage on which they were brought forth.
See, you starting something.
It's already been started, but I've had people in my life sewing into my life. When I see Monique Lisa and she's popping up there typing, you don't understand. I remember her play at the Apollo. I remember, oh my God, she's amazing. And we're working on this project right now. She's been talking to me. In fact, she did a number just like Big Mama used to do. She's like this. I'm not talking to you until you do what you're supposed to do. Woo! I'll talk to you later. And I love her for that, because you know what? Not too many of us sow seeds and get behind one another, and that's where we lack. That's where we lack. Mm-hmm. We're living in a time where each business is congruently situated due to race. We used to have the bodega on the corner store. Remember the Spanish bodegas? You walk in and Spanish poppies back there listening to some music. And they had everything that you wanted. His wife was on the side making some rice and beans. Remember, Roberta, they'd have that big case with the light bulb in it. They would have the chicharron pork. Everything was good. There's only a few Spanish bodegas left.
Oh, man.
I can't get a ham sandwich in the corner of my store because everything is halal. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just telling you what it is. Back in the days, me and your cousins, me, Timothy, Roger, we would get money to go down to Delancey Street and go shopping for clothes. Okay, we would go down to the Jewish shopping district and buy wholesale.
And be sharp.
As you said, buy wholesale, not retail. We don't pay. Okay, but I'm just trying to show you. Have you ever went to a Japanese restaurant and saw a Puerto Rican sushi chef?
Nope.
No. Have you ever went to the Diamond District and saw an African diamond cutter? No. And have you ever walked downtown and then bought some cut up fruit? or some chorizos, and the lady wasn't Mexican, I'm just trying to show you something. But you know what I want y'all to know why I said that? Because as stewards of Christ, we come in many different flavors. We're like the Crayola box.
You know it. And you know it. Oh boy. Cause this was awesome. This was so awesome. And I'm looking forward to this movie. I'm looking forward to this course. Thank you so much for Lisa. Thank you. Thank you. Monique
Lisa, we're going to put together a master class.
Thank you. Because I remember asking you, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. I was saying, I honestly think that between you and my dad, or both of you, should come together and take that knowledge that you learned while you were there and do a class and do a financial, especially in the churches. Like, honestly, yes, we are, as Black people, we need that for sure. We need it in church too, because this is another thing we need to get out of this mentality of being poor and broke is okay. It's not what we're not supposed to.
You got to get Delano Johnson's book. I'm waiting for my wife, Elisa Monique, to post it.
Man.
Wait till you hear the title of this book. I'm just going to wait till they post it.
Look at what she said. Thank you for finally being obedient and serving your people like this. That's what it's going to take. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let you have the floor to give your closing remarks, as we say. Or your
yes, as I hear my wife yelling from upstairs. I'm waiting for her to type it into the comments.
So one thing that I am learning, that it has just been on my mind, is that a lot of times God gives us assignments. Oh man, hold on. This is the name of the book.
Yes.
By who? Put the name
Delano Johnson.
And I'm gonna have to get this book and look him up too. We're gonna have to get him as an author highlight as well, because that sounds like something that we need to get into.
Refuse to live talented and broke. Hallelujah. The anointed. I can't look. That's why I didn't want to say it out loud, because every time I say the title of his book, I get a chill.
Talented and broke.
Refuse to live talented and broke. Oh my Lord. Thank you. That's my brother Delano Johnson. Now, oh my God, that's my dude.
Delano Johnson is the author. I'm gonna have to get that, and he and I are gonna have to sit and have a conversation. Johnson.
We gotta get him. We have to interview him. You need to interview him and Monique Lisa, because they're married. Yes, they're the power couple. Y'all ain't seen nothing about Jay-Z and Beyonce. That's the original power couple. And they're anointed and appointed.
See, yeah, we're gonna get some trouble. We're gonna start some trouble.
Gotta set them up an interview, because the work that they're doing. I mean, like, if I could catch Lisa, when I catch Monique, it's a blessing. They travel, they go out, they sow into people's lives.
That's amazing.
I said, where's Delano? Oh, he's in Barbados. What's he doing out there? Oh, he's doing a seminar and teaching people. I'm like, you want to do better? Be with people who are doing better.
You don't even know what you just said. Honestly, it was this.
I never do. Here. I just wing it.
It's an answer. It's an answer to a request that I made to God recently. And I honestly think that you just opened that door. Thank you for that. And you don't even realize that. We will talk later.
Okay.
So real quick before we go, one thing that I'm learning is that sometimes I understand that everything happens, in God's timing, but there are things that can be delayed. And the reason why I say that is because there are certain times when we are able, like, God will give us an assignment to do something, and we're hesitant to do so. And in that, in the hesitancy, what can happen is that we can mess up somebody else, or we can even completely mess up the flow of how things are supposed to go. Yes, God will use our delay in a way that it needs to be used. But if we don't do what it is that he's supposed to do, somebody will. Somebody will. So when we finally get to where we're supposed to actually operate and do what it is that he's supposed to do, then God is like, oh, you ready now? Because I didn't have this person and this person and this person do what I wanted you to do before. You're kind of late. So I say that because there are different things that I have I've had in my heart for years, but I just haven't had I guess the guts to say to do it, or I was afraid, or I didn't feel like I was qualified, or I didn't feel like I would be heard or whatever. And I'm seeing different people, like songs and concepts and ideas that I had years ago that people are like doing now and like are blowing up off of it. And I'm like, man, God, didn't you give me that assignment years ago? Yeah, but you ain't do it. So thank you, Linda, for letting us know shipping is included in the price of the book, which are how $25, right? $25 for the book.
Look, I've learned how not to speak finances. That's in her department. She'll type it in there.
Okay, so Linda, do me a favor, please, and type in the price of the book, and you can actually reach Thomas. You can reach. I can't call him Thomas. I have to call him Tommy. You can reach him by looking at, like, his information is being scrolled across the screen, and that's how you'll be able to reach him. But what I want you to do, cuz, is I want you to give us some words of inspiration, or something that you can share with our listeners and our viewers, just as like some encouragement.
Well, I'll share this with you. It's God's timing, and even though this country is in financial peril right now, God is a God that doesn't lie. And if you're a good steward over what he gives you, if you're a good steward over the little that he gives you, it's a test to see to when he really opens up a window and pours out a blessing to what you will do with it. So let me just tell you this. Shop for what you need. Don't yearn for what you want. Invest that things are eternal and not in things that are temporal.
I like it. I love it. I love it. Again, you said shop for what you need and not necessarily what you want. Invest in things that are eternal and not things that are temporal. I like that, and I'm going to take that with me.
You should write that down. I probably won't remember it tomorrow. God uses me that way. I'm just a vehicle.
Either way, we got it right here. So if I have to come back and write it down again, or come back in again and write it down, I'll get it.
And I must tell you, Roberta, I am so godly proud of you. When I look at you, it's just like you were still little in Pampers. For y'all that don't know, this woman does not age. I'm not going to tell her age.
I'm 40. I'm glad to say it.
She's got that baby face, and to God be the glory. See, when you live for Christ, he restores you.
Oh, thank you, cousin.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And I just want to say thank you to Linda as well, his wife, which is also my cousin. And well, y'all know what I mean by that. That's his wife. So that's his cousin. That's my cousin through that way. But thank you guys so much for this book specifically, because it's something that is starting a conversation or continuing a conversation that needs to be had. You guys go purchase Black on the Wall. Get it directly from him. If you want to get it from Amazon, fine, but get it directly from him. All right.
If you get it from me, it comes autographed also with a bookmark.
There you go. There you go. So make sure you get it from him. And I'm just going to keep saying it that way. Get it directly from the source. Until next time, you have been watching Speaking Plain English. Have a good week.
God bless you.
Uh-oh, we had another comment.